This is gonna be very, very interesting.
I'm going to attempt to remember what I said last time for the intro, if you're ready.
God, I don't remember. I don't remember what you said.
I think I said something like, welcome to Analog Schtick, the PlayStation 2 podcast, the podcast where we slowly but surely work our way through the entire North American PS2 library, discussing and semi-reviewing every game along the way. Today we will be discussing just two games, SSX and SSX Tricky. I am your co-host Clayton, joined as always by my co-host, the double backflip vacation to a late nifty 50, my co-host Morgan. Morgan, how are you?
I'm completely confused as to what my identity even is. I'm not familiar with that salad of words that just left your mouth.
I tried to find like the most complicated trick that I could find.
It sounded like the most complicated.
Is there any tricks to you that like stood out while playing this game? Because there were a couple that I kept performing over and over again just by accident.
Right.
Stalefish being the most common. I heard fillet of stalefish a lot. And I don't know what button combination that is, but I kept hitting it.
So the trick that I, like, hands down was performing the most was spinning wildly in the air and then immediately eating shit. So that was all I could pull off, really.
Yeah. So how long do you think you played each game respectively?
It's hard to remember because it was like feels like a few weeks ago. It might have been a few weeks ago. Who knows what time even is anymore. I played Tricky more, definitely.
That's good.
And I think it was like a couple hours for each, but I kept having this issue with both games. And probably because I was playing on an emulator. And I have this like later in the notes, but basically what would happen is sometimes when I landed a trick or if I fell, my character model would like phase out of existence. And so I couldn't see myself anymore, except for, you know, like the little line in the snow that like kind of follows your snowboard around.
Yeah.
That was the only thing that was left of me. And so I was like trying to race and like do things without being able to see myself. And so, you know, then I would like do the next jump and like try to do a trick, not be able to see myself, fall down and like crash. And then my character model would reappear. So that was really nice. So I couldn't see myself half the time.
I was playing on a PS2, just not through a disc, but I ran into a couple glitches as well.
Oh,
I ran into one like multiple times where my character would be stuck sideways, but it would act like he's going straight on, if you know what I mean.
Okay, I think that also happened to me as well. Yes.
I think that happened in SSX, not Tricky. I don't remember.
Okay.
They're very similar. Also, we just there's some other things I wanted to bring up before we got into it, but whatever. Right. I wanted to just briefly mention, because we've been doing this podcast now for a little bit, I think we have a better idea of what we want it to be. We're going to be releasing a episode at the second of every month. So it's going to be a monthly thing for now. I think that's for the best. I think it gives us enough time to like actually play the game and, I don't know, think about it. We're also going to be limiting ourselves, for the most part, some exceptions like this episode, to one game, if it ever makes sense to cover multiple games at once, like this game where it's two games that are essentially the same, just kind of like, I don't know. SSX Tricky is kind of like an updated SSX, so I think it makes sense to talk about them together. But for the most part, just discussing a single game at a time, and going forward, we're going to pass the baton of choosing a game back and forth. So this is kind of like my choice for this month, and then I'll give Morgan the ability to choose next month's game. And yeah, you can find us on Spotify at Analog Schtick, hopefully Apple soon. We're also on Google Podcasts, even though I didn't actively put ourselves on Google Podcasts, so that's cool. Video version is always on Joystick at YouTube.
Wait, sorry, did you say we're on Google and you didn't put us on Google?
Yeah, I didn't do that.
Did Google just yoink us?
So the podcast hosting service I use is called Red Circle, and it's basically like one of the only free ones that I could find. Most podcast hosting services are paid, or it's like some other like you have it through your web. I don't know. This was just the easiest one for us, and it automatically puts us on Google. And I didn't stop that.
Okay.
So I was like, nah, that's fine, I guess.
Yeah.
It's cool. There is apparently one other Analog Schtick podcast out there, which I was very surprised about. And so it is now my goal to overtake them.
Wait, don't they just have like the one episode?
I think so. But
Okay.
still, we must overtake them. We must. Okay. Okay, back to the SSX discussion. SSX, or Super Snowboard Cross, sometimes referred to as snowboarding, surfing, and motocross. I don't know why I found conflicting information on this. It seems like there should just be a definite answer, but could be either one of those. So yeah, Morgan, what's your, do you have any experience with this series, any prior knowledge going into this episode?
I think I'd heard of it. Well, we touched on it briefly, and was SSX was part of the launch library, right?
It was.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. Again, I found conflicting information on that, but I believe it is part of the launch lineup.
Okay. Then that would be my only prior experience. Was there... I think there was a snowboarding game on the PS1, but I don't remember what it was called, and I don't remember if it's affiliated with SSX or if SSX was the first game just on the
SSX
PS2.
is the first game.
Oh,
yeah.
it is?
So it
Okay, so
started
never
with the PS2. It was originally being developed for the Dreamcast, and I guess it got delayed, and then it became a PS2 exclusive, which is kind of weird. I don't know if there was like an actual deal, and that's the reason it's a PS2 exclusive, or if it's just like,
That's just how the development went.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I don't think GameCube or Xbox wouldn't have been out, so I guess their only other option would have been to put it on like the Dreamcast, which is kind of like I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It ended up being a PS2 exclusive. None of the other games, aside from, oh wait, I say that, but I think there was a Wii exclusive game at some point. Let me just pull up the list of SSX games. So in a lot of people's minds, the main SSX games, I believe, are SSX, SSX Tricky, SSX 3, SSX On Tour, and then there was SSX Blur, which I don't think most people like, and I think that was the Wii exclusive one.
Ha.
Yeah, and then there was a reboot of the franchise in 2012, just called SSX, and it was a very divisive reboot, to say the least. That was my introduction to the franchise. I remember enjoying it. I played it like roughly when it came out, and it was kind of like meant to be like a more gritty reboot in a lot of ways.
How?
I know.
How do you make
it's very
it gritty?
strange. I know. That's to me, not knowing the series prior, I wasn't really bothered by it. I believe that whenever they showed the game for the first time, there was a bunch of backlash. So they toned it down a little bit. They still managed to get that Run DMC sample for the Tricky thing. So it's like there was like kind of like two conflicting aesthetics going on with that game.
Okay.
Because the whole game was based around this idea of like these like, I think it was like 9 deadly descents. And it was basically like you were going around to different mountain ranges, and at the peak of every mountain range, there was like a specific, like, I don't know what the best word is, like challenge or like obstacle. Like, for one, it's like, it's really cold, so you have to like pick a line that has sun. Like you can't stay in the shade for too long or else you'll die.
What?
Or there's one where you're going through like a volcano, so you have to have like a headlamp on. That one I remember being like so freaking disorienting because you would spin around when you're doing tricks and you just like can't see where you're pointed.
Oh no, that sounds awful.
I mean, I enjoyed it.
Okay.
And I think it's like a decent game, but like aesthetically, it's definitely not what a lot of people wanted who are fans of the series. But yeah, not to get too off track.
Right.
I did expect to bring up the reboot at some point.
Okay.
As far as like some development history, there's a DVD content tab on SSX Tricky, which has a bunch of little mini documentaries focusing on different aspects of the game, like the music, the courses, the tricks, the characters. And I definitely recommend any fans check that out because it's it's really fun to like get like a peek behind the curtain at like the people making the game, because it's back when games were kind of small, you know? It was like a team of like 15 people, I think.
Oh, geez.
So,
that's impressive.
yeah. I think it was like 15 or like 15 main people. Maybe they had like another studio. I don't know. But I don't know. AAA games used to be more manageable. And that's funny because they brought this up in the documentary. Like, from their perspective, they're like, games keep getting bigger and teams keep getting bigger. It's like, yeah, you used to only need like 2 people to do art. And I'm like, yeah, it's crazy. There's like this massive inflation of what it takes to make a AAA game now. So I can't, honestly, as much as I like these documentaries, like getting to know the people making the game, I feel like it's almost impossible to do now with like a
without
like a AAA game.
Without cutting out, you know, a lot of people and like a lot of teams probably, and then you know, then you have like this weird tension of like, oh, you were in the documentary and I wasn't, blah blah blah.
Yeah. Like, you could make it on, like, the heads of, like, a big game or, like, a small indie game. I think that'd be cool.
Yes, that would be.
Did you check out any of these documentaries?
No, I didn't have time. I didn't know about the DVD content thing until, I think, a couple days ago, but I just haven't had the time to sit down and, like, watch it.
I didn't know about it till, like, yesterday either.
Oh, okay.
If you scroll down to the bottom, I just want you to see this man.
Okay.
So if you scroll down to the resources tab on the Google Doc.
Yeah.
There is one.
Mixmaster Mike.
Mixmaster Mike.
Okay.
Can you please click on that?
Okay.
Scrub through until you see a man in a football jersey at some turntables.
Oh, I see him.
What you're seeing right now is Mixmaster Mike himself.
Okay.
I just found him to be such a character of the 2000s, and he just stood out to me.
Like, look at him.
I know. Look at him go.
Yeah. His giant football jersey and his chains. He's grooving.
I highly recommend everyone interested check this out.
You just talked about his music and he said, I don't know, it's something just like sounds, and I vibe with that a lot.
So if you can find this on YouTube too. It's SSX Tricky DVD content, and it's the music section. It's about 4 minutes long. Absolutely worth it to check out Mixmaster Mike. Who, I don't know if you probably didn't look into the cheat codes for this game, Morgan, but he is a playable character.
What?
Through the cheat codes, yeah, you can play as
That's
Mixmaster Mike.
amazing. Oh.
It's pretty cool.
I love that.
He doesn't like pop up as like a character on like that menu character selection screen, but you just like whatever character you pick becomes Mixmaster Mike when you get into the game.
Yeah, so I thought about...
I really like it.
I thought about looking for the cheat codes just to see if I could find anything to help me cheese, because I was having so many problems. But yeah, no, I didn't do that. But I should have.
There was for Tricky. I don't know about SSX, but for Tricky, there were like cheat codes to unlock all the characters or like max out your stats, get all the boards or outfits and stuff. But I think it reset every time you started up the game, so it wasn't like a permanent unlock.
Yeah.
Which is cool. I mean, it's fun to have cheat codes in games. That's kind of disappeared.
Yeah, and I think it's very tragic that it's disappeared. I miss that.
It's definitely, like, I don't know, just like game development philosophy, I think, changed where, I don't know. I feel like if this game was made today, maybe not this game specifically, but a game like this was made today where, I don't know. I feel like instead of cheat codes, you would have a microtransaction. You know what I mean?
Right. Like, pay us $2 to get this big head mode pack.
Exactly.
And that's such garbage. I also think that, like, to a certain extent, and not to get like off track, but I think that games sometimes they take themselves a bit too seriously. It's like, hey, you're a game. Mm-hmm. And that even goes into like the characters, the character models, or, you know, the racers in these games have so much character. They're so wacky and just but yeah, we don't have things like that anymore.
Oh, I feel like this generation of consoles was where the wacky like sports game like sub-series like died. Like, I
feel like it was at its peak and then it just like fell off the face of the earth.
I don't know if there's like any like games similar to this that still are even being made. Like, I'm pretty sure there's not. Everything in the sports genre seems to be more leaning towards realism,
Mm-hmm.
which is sad. Even like racing games as well. Like I feel like racing games, we've moved away from like the days of, I don't know, Burnout seems to be a dead franchise, or is a dead franchise, and Need for Speed seems to be a dead franchise.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I miss it. It's definitely, I don't know. Like, is it gone for like lack of interest?
Well,
Maybe it's just like Madden is the most popular. So everyone's like, well, like Madden as well as like 2K, NBA 2K, and like other realistic sports games. I guess because those are the most popular, people are chasing what is the most popular. But I still feel like there's a niche you could like fit yourself into if you were interested in making a game like this.
right. I feel like game franchises tend to like die when there's nothing left to innovate or to like I don't know, iterate off of and like play off of.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if like everybody that was working on this type of game just like hit that wall and then was like, we're done. We ran out of juice.
Maybe. I mean, I would associate this game series closest with Tony Hawk, just
Yeah.
thematically and kind of style wise as well. And those games definitely started to wane in reception. I don't know about sales, but towards the end of this generation. So maybe that, I don't know, along with other games that were kind of, I don't know. That could be part of the reason.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's get more into like the aesthetics of this game. Morgan, what were your first impressions or your impressions in general about this game and how it presents itself?
Well, so as you can see, the first note I have, I obviously I played SSX first. Well, especially because you like sort of like warned me a little bit about it, and you were like, Tricky is like definitely the better of the two. Like it's hard to play Tricky and then go back to the first one. But my first note for SSX, the first thing that I noticed was that there is like a synthesized alarm sound when you're like navigating the menus, and it sounds like a sexual moan, and it's very distracting.
Okay, I didn't realize that's what you were talking about. I thought you were just talking about like the announcer lady who just like
I mean that too,
said
but
everything you picked.
But like the I'm gonna make the noise and this is embarrassing, but like the you know, like the alarm sound sounds like that.
Yeah.
Sounds like a moan.
You're right. Let me find it. It's just the SSX main theme or menu theme, I think.
I'm actually gonna look for it as well.
Because it goes like, again, probably gonna embarrass myself as well. It goes like, wow, wow, wow,
Yes.
wow, wow.
Yes, that's yeah.
Yeah, it's called Prism.
Okay. Well, whoever mixed that, or you know, maybe that was Mixmaster Mike or whatever. That was.
I think he probably came in for Tricky, if I had to guess.
Okay.
But yeah, that was one of my favorite. Honestly, I don't know if it was my favorite because I heard it the most or whatever, but I liked that track.
Oh, the song Prism?
Even if it was a little strange.
The other thing that I was like very impressed with and I thought was really cool was how like as you're playing the game, the music is dynamic. You know, like basically like when you're on the ground, the music sounds one way, but when you're like airborne, a lot of the layers of the soundtrack like disappear and it's sort of like a more distant drum beat sound that makes you feel like, I don't know, it just like is so fitting with the like the flow of action in the gameplay.
Yeah, and this is something that is in the reboot as well. And there were like a couple times where I didn't realize that's what the game was doing. I just thought that I just coincidentally landed on like a beat drop in the song after like, you know, whacking out a double late vacation fillet of stale fish in the air. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. Let me Xbox record that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
No, it does make you feel super cool. Like it feels like that like everything you do or like your I don't know, I guess like your actions are like the coolest thing, like the center of attention or whatever. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, the only other game I think I've ever played that had something similar was the Spyro Reignited trilogy where the soundtrack would change dynamically if you were like charging.
That's cool.
Yeah, but I don't think I've played any other game that did something similar. I'm sure they're out there. I just haven't.
Yeah, and
messed
we
with them.
might have played them. I mean, I feel like this is one of those things where it just kind of contributes to the feel of the game.
Yeah,
And
it
maybe
does.
you don't notice it unless you like kind of look for it, or if it's not done like super subtly. Like
Yeah.
I feel like it's not super subtle in this game, but it adds to the feel.
Yes, it definitely does.
On that same note, I like how the announcer in the game would like yell at you for doing too many tricks in a row, like or doing too many of the same tricks in a row. He'd be like, "Try something new," or something like that.
Yeah.
I thought it was nice. It's much better than like a text box popping up saying you're doing the same trick over and over again.
Right. Hint.
You know what I mean?
Try something else. But yeah, it's
And
like,
it wasn't like it didn't like break the fourth wall necessarily, because it's like, oh, it's like if someone's watching this, they would probably be like, he's doing the same thing over and over again. You know what I mean?
right. Yeah, it's like an immersive way to like gently tell the player like, hey, you're not quite playing the game as intended. Do it different.
Soundtrack of both games, certifiable hood classics.
They slap.
They slap very hard. Did you listen? I don't know. Did you like go through each of the songs, or did you kind of just like listen as you played?
I just listened as I played. Yeah, I didn't. Well, because I feel like if when you say did I just listen to the soundtracks, do you mean like on YouTube or something?
Yeah, like go through and listen to each song.
Yeah, I actually was just listening as I played because I knew that if I just like looked them up, it was gonna be missing the like dynamic shifts with the gameplay that I think
Yeah,
adds to it. So I just didn't bother.
I also mostly listened as I played. I listened to a playlist of the SSX Tricky soundtrack while I was writing up my notes, and boy, it's a slap fest. But I don't know why, but I was like struggling to like describe the like what I was like, what is the name of this aesthetic? I kept wanting to say funky, but like it felt wrong. Like I'm like, is that right? But that's how they describe it themselves. They're like inspirations from like funk, hip hop, and beat break music for
Yeah.
Tricky specifically. I guess SSX as well.
Right. Well, it's definitely like the 90s and early 2000s version of those genres.
Yeah.
Because like genres evolve over time. And this music definitely sounds like, you know, like I said, 90s, early 2000s.
It's like when rap was just about rhyming. You know what I mean?
Right. And like not so much about like, I mean, I don't know. It still like plays with rhythm, but not as much. Like I would say like today's rap is like more focused on like playing with rhythm and stuff like that instead of just rhyming. But anyway.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting to think of SSX Tricky as being a game that is so like the name comes from the Run DMC sample of It's Tricky. And it's like, that's the song that plays whenever you like fill out your boost bar and everything. It's like, it's so interesting that like just a sample from a song was just like the like most identifiable part of this game, that it's what it's named after.
I wondered if they like put the cart before the horse a little bit. Like I wonder like how they managed to, because it does seem like a perfect like combination of like the sample and then like the actual gameplay. Like I wonder how much of that like fed off of each other, if that makes sense.
It's like a backronym. It's like they came up with the name and then they're like, okay, let's make a game around this.
Right, yeah, exactly.
I associate that sample so closely with the series, and I think a lot of people do. They brought it back for the reboot, but I was surprised to find out whenever I went to SSX3 briefly that the sample was nowhere to be found. I was like, what?
Aww.
This is so core to what this franchise is in my head, that it was weird to not have it. I tried to look up, not saying that SSX Tricky is inspired by It's Tricky by Run DMC, but
They go hand in hand.
it kind of is.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like the style might derive from the sample. Like that might have been like where they decided to like take the direction this way. I don't know.
I think
But
sorry, not to like totally derail the conversation, but I think that's probably like, and I don't know if they talked about it in the documentary or anything. I've like listened to other like game developer documentaries where they were basically like, yeah, we had this like one core idea that the whole game was built around. So it could very well be, you know, that sample that was leading like all of their aesthetic choices.
I wonder if it's something as dumb as like someone was playing SSX and listening to Run DMC, and
they were like,
the song came on, and
they
they're
had
like,
like a
"Wait,
galaxy
this is
brain."
really good." Yeah,
Yeah.
like they maxed out their boost right as the song came on, or like the chorus or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, oh wow, this could be a whole game. Okay, do you have anything else to add to the aesthetics? We're going to talk about the characters later, but like the overall aesthetics.
I don't know. This probably straddles the line between course design. Sorry, can you imagine how boring it would be to be in the crowd at that? Because like you're on a hill, like it's not like a racetrack where they come back around, right?
Yeah,
so like
yeah.
you just like see them go by once, and then you're like, yeah, and then that's it. And then I don't know what you do from there, because it's not like you can like run to the bottom of the hill and meet them there because they're going way faster than you.
Yeah, like I guess you got some TVs posted up to like, catch the action somewhere, but
right. Anyway, that was the last.
If it's a race, there's 3 heats at least. You get to see them go by 3 times,
right?
I guess,
but still, that's just kind of garbage. Anyway.
Yeah. What did you think of the mechanics?
Okay.
Across the 2 games?
So in SSX, I took the time to do the tutorial hill, which is basically just like a straight downhill with like some jumps on it or whatever. And I don't know if I'm just like dumb, I'm just kind of like bad or whatever this kind of game, but I had such a hard time grasping the mechanics.
I get you.
And
yeah.
Well, especially because like, so the way that they handled the tutorial was, like you have this big long hill and like all these like jumps and stuff, like all these like specific points where you can make a jump off of a hill and like do the thing that the tutorial is telling you to do. But the problem is I would be like going down the hill and trying to do the thing that the tutorial was telling me to do, but then I didn't like get to master it. And then the tutorial would just like move on to something else. And I'm like, but I still don't know what I'm doing.
Right. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
The tutorial for SSX1 was, I felt like both games, it was nice that they had a practice slope, but I felt like they needed something where it was like, okay, you're at a hill, you go down the hill, and then you just press like that reset to track button, and you just go back to the top of the hill. Like,
yes.
And you could actually practice things like quickly.
Yes. Yeah, that would have helped a lot. And also like I had issues figuring out like, oh, here's when I'm supposed to push this button to jump this way, and you know, it was just kind of hard for me to grasp.
How did you feel about the like tutorial version in Tricky?
You know what? I didn't play it.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, I did the tutorial in SSX. I bet I can just like fiddle with Tricky and I'll figure it out because it's like kind of the same.
Yeah. It's a little better. It's not like a series of jumps. It's just one big jump.
Okay.
And it'll show you a controller in the corner pressing the buttons. And it's meant to just be like, okay, I want to do this trick.
Yeah.
How do I do this trick? And it'll show you how to do the trick.
Okay.
I felt like there was a couple like core like fundamental things that I felt like the game should have said more explicitly. And not saying, I think it does like specify these things, but like it didn't penetrate my 8 brain. So I didn't like actually pick them up, and they were pretty important. Like you have to do like what are the bigger flips, like to do like a double backflip or like a 1080, or like you have to wind up your jump before, or wind up your spin before you jump. And I didn't pick that up the first time that I like played through the game. So whenever I got to like those tricks in the trick book where it was like do a 1080 filet-o stalefish late vacation or whatever.
Yeah.
And I just was like, okay, I guess I'm going to try this at like the biggest jump that I could find. And I'm like, I still can't do it. I had to watch someone doing it and being like, oh, he does it easily. He must be doing something that I'm not. So I kind of figured it out, but I don't know. I felt like they really needed to kind of drill that into your head more. Also, following the trick book should have been something that was more almost like forced down the player, because learning the tricks like slowly through progressing in the trick book for each character really kind of like enhances your enjoyment of the game when you're able to like pull off these crazy tricks.
Yeah.
Because you like get boost faster and you're better at the races and you can knock out like the show off challenges a lot easier. So I feel like they needed to put that more in the forefront for the player, because once I figured out that was like a portion of the game that I should be like messing around with, I felt like I enjoyed it a lot more. But yeah, did you mess around with the trick book at all?
I tried, and so the thing, and this is like gonna sound like nitpicky, but the UI for like navigating the trick book was like a little confusing. And
it was.
So like I accidentally skipped the basic tricks and I went straight into like the complicated ones, and I was like, how the heck am I supposed to remember this? Because there's like some button combinations that are just absolutely insane. And then it took me a second to like flip back through the book and be like, oh, that's because I like skipped all the more like baby noob stuff. So I tried some of like the simpler tricks to like, you know, get a hang of it. I just kept crashing.
Yeah.
And it was hard for me to so you know how like, and I think this kind of like applies to like any game where you like do a trick. It was so hard for me to be able to tell, partially because sometimes my character model was invisible, but it was hard for me to be able to tell like when in the like animation I was going to succeed and when I was going to crash, because there were some times where like I would do a trick and then I would try to like let go of it so that I would land, and like visually it looked like my board should have just like landed on the ground and I should have just continued as normal, but then I would still crash, and it was like really frustrating because it's like, but it doesn't look like I would have crashed.
Were you mayhaps using an Alpine board?
I don't know. I didn't mess with the board loadout at all. I could have been. I think I was just using like a default board though. Like I think I was just kind of bad at the game.
Yeah. Which character did you pick?
The default girl. I don't know what her name was. I don't
Elise?
remember.
Red?
I think
shirt?
she had a lot of pink and blue going on, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, wait, who did you pick? And this was SSX?
I used her in both SSX and Tricky.
Must have been Elise.
Yeah, I think it was Elise.
I just typed Elise, thinking that it would show me SSX characters. Oh, yeah, so...
I think her board is pink and blue or something.
Blonde hair, right?
Yeah, that sounds right.
But yeah, so it sounds like you were playing Elise. I think she might start with an Alpine board, honestly. So maybe that was it.
That might have been. I don't know.
So the Alpine board, there's 3 types of boards in the game. It's BX, Freestyle, and Alpine. And Freestyle is meant to lean more towards tricks. Alpine is meant to lean more towards speed. And BX is in the middle. I leaned way more towards Freestyle and BX and did not even mess around with the Alpine boards because they have a very annoying feature that is, if you land a trick facing the wrong way on the board, it just... I don't know if you crash or stop.
Oh.
But you have to, like, switch around because it's meant to go one direction, which is annoying, especially because...
Well, yeah.
I don't know. I'm doing tricks, like, semi-intentionally, but, like, I never was, like, able to, like... really confidently know if I was landing a trick correct, because sometimes they want you to do like a 180 like in the trick book, so it's like, oh, I'm gonna do a 180 on an Alpine board and then I'm gonna have to like stop and turn around.
Yeah,
so
that's
like,
really gross.
it doesn't really, there's like a little bit of a conflict there,
right?
So yeah, Alpine sucks.
Okay.
Don't at me. I don't know.
Well, another thing that I was going to say was I liked how, so like in other racing games, like obviously when you fail or if you like crash or fall or whatever, there's like a punishment. I liked how in this game, the only punishment was like losing momentum. So instead of like killing the momentum of the gameplay entirely. It's just like, oh, you just stumbled for a second, then you get back up. Compared to like, I don't know, like Mario Kart or other games where it's like, oh, you crashed. Oh, we're gonna freeze everything for a moment and like have this frustratingly slow thing put you back on the track.
Oh, that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like a racing game where your like car is permanently damaged or something like that.
Yeah.
Where you're just like forever gonna go slower now. It's not like you break your leg and you go slower now.
Right.
Which would be, I don't know, a little dark.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. It's annoying to fumble, but I'm of two minds with this. Where I don't know. I hate when my momentum is killed in like a game that is based around going fast. It's like a racing game or like just any game where like momentum is like a key mechanic. But I do like when eating shit is like a threat or it's like a possibility.
Yeah.
I played through Spider-Man for the PS5 or PS4 earlier this year, and it's really fun to like swing around the city and stuff, but you just cannot mess up. Like, and I don't mean like it's bad if you mess up. It's just like the game doesn't let you mess up. Like you're just kind of always going forward. Spider-Man never like accidentally smacks into the side of a building or anything like that and loses all of his momentum. So while it was like fun to move around, it's like super approachable too, because like basically anyone can just like start swinging around as Spider-Man. It wasn't like super compelling to get good at for that reason, because there was no like, you were always good at it. Like everyone who picks it up will be good at swinging around. Like you can get better, I guess, but you can make it look cooler by like, I don't know, using more mobility options. But it was never like something I wanted to get good at, as opposed to other games like Ghost Runner, which is punishingly, infuriatingly difficult to move around. But it's fun to be good at because, like, I don't know, there's like a progression of like, I was bad at this thing and now I'm good at it. So it's nice to have that. I feel like SSX probably should be more on the forgiving side of things than it is. I think it's a little bit too punishing to beginners or like people who are new to the game or this type of game. But yeah, that's just kind of my thoughts on the whole getting knocked on your ass thing.
Yeah. Things that have a high skill ceiling and are very punishing. Like I think that there's like a lot more satisfaction that can come from that versus something where it's like it just sort of like holds your hand and you know, this game,
because I feel like part of the fun of part of the fun of like in Ghost Runner specifically, because that's like my example of seeing yourself move around like really skillfully is knowing that like you're just like one like wrong input from dying. Like it's like it's like a tense thing almost. Like,
yeah.
I could easily mess this up.
Right.
I don't know.
I think that's also why people are drawn to things like Dark Souls and stuff like that. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, I agree.
I'll let you say what you were going to say.
I think I was just going to bring up Dark Souls.
I saw that you couldn't figure out how to push people.
No. Oh, I also thought it was interesting that there was like, wasn't there like a rivalry system?
Yes, in SSX Tricky there was.
Yeah.
So that was like the more you pushed around people. I don't know if you could lower people's hatred towards you.
You can only make it go up.
I think you might have only been able to make it go up.
Why would you do that?
Again, well, so you can knock someone down with the right stick. And that, I'm not going to make fun of you for not being able to figure it out, because I couldn't figure it out. I played through the game earlier in January just on my own, played through all of SSX, and then found it out after I played through SSX Tricky for the second time. So it's not something that the game like shoves down your face. It was actually on like a menu screen, loading screen tooltip thing where it's like, hey, push people.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, oh my God, how did I not get this? But yeah, if you knock someone down, it instantly fills up your boost bar and you have Tricky or like full boost. Yeah.
That's so weird.
Yeah. So again, a little bit, I don't know, I find that a little bit conflicting. I guess it's a risk versus reward thing where it's like, I can knock you down and you can, fill up my trick bar, but you will hate me more.
Right, I get, and also it's like, oh, do I want to focus on doing tricks or do I just want to like shove this person down?
Yeah. I don't know. I think one of the interesting things about like the nemesis system, I guess we could call it, is
I think that's actually, was that what it was called?
that's what they call the thing in Shadow of Mordor, where like you kill someone or like you defeat someone and then they come back later, but I don't know what it's called here. But characters start out with different people that hate them. And like if you check their bio, which every character has a bio and like a backstory, which I'm just like, oh, that's so nice. In Tricky, at least. I don't know about SSX, but in Tricky, like characters start out with different like alliances and enemies and stuff. And I like that. Like I think everyone hates Luther and Luther hates everybody. Or something like, so there's some characters where it's just like more people are gunning for you, which is, it's interesting.
Also, didn't every character have like their own stats that...
Yeah, they had different stats and stuff. I think they have different like stat caps as well. Like I think like if you max them out, I think certain characters have a higher potential to be good at certain things.
Interesting. I was a little alarmed that there was a stat called edging.
Yeah,
I see that you also know what that is.
Yeah. Well, you wrote in the notes like, haha, Clayton, I don't know if you know what that is. It's a sex thing. I'm like, yes, I know what it is.
Well, I didn't know.
How old am I? 23?
Listen, there's some like terms where it's like, okay, I don't know if this is like an actual term or if this is just like a weird fan fiction thing. Because that is like a tag people put on their fan fiction, like, oh hey, by the way, there's edging in this in case you were interested. It's like, all right, thanks. Anyway.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
I kind of have this stance towards a lot of games, but I don't feel like almost any game needs like leveling up mechanics that just make your character better, aside from like an RPG, I guess, where that's kind of like the whole point. But like in a game that is meant to be like about like getting better and actually getting better, like having more skill when playing the game, I don't feel like you need to have a stat that also makes you better at playing the game. It's weird to me because so I played Mac whenever I went through SSX Tricky at first, and I maxed out his character. So I like had the full stat bar thing. So I had like maxed out speed, tricks, edging, and stability. And then whenever I switched over to Zoe to like start playing with her character, I just felt so sluggish. And like I was still like decent at the game, having gone through like all of the stuff with Mac, but it felt weird for like different characters. I'm fine with different characters having different stats, but I don't like leveling them up, especially because it's pretty grindy in this game. Going through all of Mac took me like, I don't know, maybe like 8 or 10 hours, maybe.
Goodness.
But like that was also like me kind of learning the game as well. And I don't know, I didn't like that aspect of it. Same thing with the boards. I don't know. I guess the boards is like I'm more okay with the boards. I don't know. I just wish the game was like exclusively about you as a player getting better at playing the game. And maybe characters like have different niches for different play styles, but I don't like leveling the character up that I'm playing.
Yeah, that makes sense. So like along that those points, like at first I saw like the stats and like my first impression was I was like, oh wow, like that's like really in depth and like cool that they would I don't know, I guess like track progress and like let you improve characters in that way. I guess I saw it as maybe like a way for making things easier for, you know, the kids or people like me that are really bad but are trying to be persistent. So like maybe, you know, you start off really bad and, you know, maybe your skills don't improve over time like a more experienced player might or a better player might, but like at least you get a sense of skill progression because your character is at least getting better.
Kind of.
But I still think I still think that like now after like reading your points, I think I agree with you more. And I think
that makes that philosophy makes sense. Like having an option for new players or younger players to like still enjoy the game, But I feel like I don't think that was their philosophy when making this game, because whenever I started out SSX, I felt like the game was really hard, like way harder than what I remember Tricky being.
Yeah.
But it was really just because I needed to like break past that like initial thing where my character is just completely garbage. And then the whole game was easier. So like the whole difficulty curve thing was kind of out of whack.
It seems
like,
backwards. Like you want your game to start off easy and then get harder so that as the player's skill increases, the difficulty also increases. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of why I'm like, because if you have a system where the courses get harder as you progress, but your character gets better as you get, win more skill points, in theory, you would kind of end out with like a difficulty curve that is a straight line, like a straight horizontal line. Like the game is getting harder, the character is getting better. So it's almost like the challenge isn't increasing.
Right.
But if it's like the character is like a static thing, then as the tracks get more difficult, the challenge increases. But like your skills increase as well. But it's more rewarding, I think, that way.
Yes. Yeah. I would agree.
I like the idea of, I don't know, my brain really likes the idea of unlocking things though. So like, even if they were just cosmetic, I would really enjoy like just doing these challenges to unlock the different outfits and the different like boards and stuff. So it's not like the skill points is needed in order to be motivating to me, because I find unlocking just cosmetic stuff to be just as motivating as, I don't know, unlocking skill points, I guess.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, let's discuss show off versus racing. Before we get into it, I just want to say that in the documentary, the mini documentary that they put out, and this isn't an exact quote, but they referred to the game as being a racing game where you do tricks to gain speed as like the core thing behind it.
Mm-hmm.
But like through playtesting, they found out that specifically younger players gravitated more towards tricks during like playtesting. So I guess treating it a little bit more like a sandbox in a sense, where it's like, oh, I'm just messing around on this, slope or whatever. But I think my biggest gripe with the game is that I didn't like how the races were structured. I think I enjoy the races enough, but I hate that it's like broken up into 3 heats where only the last heat matters, and it gets harder, but like, I don't know, like just put me at the last heat. I don't want to play the race 3 times in a row, because some of these tracks are like pretty long. They're like 5 minutes. And it's like, okay, I got to do this 3 times. And if I mess up on that last race and get like a silver medal instead of a gold medal, then it's like I got to do the whole thing over again.
Yeah, I had that same frustration.
Yeah, it sucks. I much preferred show-off mode, but why did you prefer the racing?
Probably because that's the less frustrating part for me. So like,
I guess that's true. Yeah.
Like if I'm just like focused on going fast, I don't have to worry as much about like wiping out. And I don't know, and just like with like racing games in general, I've always just preferred, I'm just like, I don't know, I just want to get first place. Like I don't really care about showing off. Maybe that's like weirdly utilitarian of me or something. I don't know.
This trick serves no purpose.
Yeah.
Purpose.
Jeez. Yeah, I don't know. Which actually, so the only like prior experience that I had to something similar to this was in the first Ratchet and Clank game, there are hoverboard courses that play kind of similar to this, and there's like tricks and like,
you're right.
There's like tricks and flips and stuff you can do on your hoverboard, and I loved doing that as a kid. But as I've gotten older, I'm like, nah, I just want to go fast, get it over with. So I don't know.
See, this is actually like not a problem I have with the speedrunning community, but like why I'm not so interested in like out of bounds glitches and stuff in speedruns. Like that just doesn't interest me in learning how to do. Like I like the idea of learning how to play a game, not like stylishly, but like, I don't know. I guess stylishly is the right word, where it's like you're moving through the level like using like all these fancy tricks and stuff. And it's like, oh, that's impressive. Like watching someone who's really good at Tony Hawk, like just chain together a very long trick. I'm like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's like, that appeals more to me than completing a game like quickly. I guess. I do like how they kind of try to marry the two where you do the tricks to get the speed boost.
Right.
I felt like the speed boost never felt that impactful to me. Personally, I don't know if you disagree or not.
See, my issue was I never really got there because that was that bad.
Did you ever manage to pull off like an Uber trick or anything like that? Where, like,
I couldn't.
Okay. Okay. I need you to look up the Uber tricks at least.
Okay.
Because like SSX Tricky Uber tricks. Do you see a video that's SSX Tricky PS2 all character tricks?
Well, I just watched a man with an afro do a belly flop on his board, so.
Yeah, that's basically what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Let me just grab this link and send it to you. It's basically like every character had unique Uber tricks, which they could only do after they filled up their like boost meter.
Okay. Yeah.
And they were like kind of long and convoluted tricks that would get you a lot of points. And also like every time you landed an Uber trick in Tricky, one of the letters of Tricky would like fill in with red.
Okay.
On the right. And if you maxed it out, then you just had permanent boost.
Huh.
So there was like a fun little mechanic in that. I felt like the length of the courses never really allowed me to fill it out fast enough for infinite boost to really matter, but it was kind of cool.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, that sounds like that wouldn't, like the benefit of the infinite boost is, yeah.
Certain tracks, it definitely helps more, like Tokyo.
Okay.
How far did you make it in the tracks, by the way?
I'm gonna be honest, I don't remember. It was just a struggle bus. Everything was a struggle bus.
I'm gonna send you Tokyo, SSX Tokyo, because I hate this.
Is it
god
SSX
track.
Tokyo or Tricky Tokyo?
Both. It was in both, and I hate both of them.
Okay, I'll look it up.
So it resembles a pinball course, I would say.
Oh, wait, I think I did this one in the first game.
Yeah, and it's just a janky piece of crap, honestly.
Oh, I don't like the obstacles already.
Are you looking at Tricky or SSX right now?
SSX.
I really like the idea of this course. Like, in theory, like having a bunch of like crazy outlandish like slopes and rails to grind on and like fun obstacles, but kind of sucks, honestly. So with this course in particular, to do one for like, if you were doing a single race of it, you would have to go through the course 3 times. So if you're doing like the race in the World Circuit version of it, you have to do the race 9 times to finish it. Granted, it's really short. It's like a minute to get through it.
Okay.
But it's like so repetitive.
Oh.
And it's like that way for both Tricky and SSX.
Oh, okay. And that's why, because it's repetitive, is that like the main...
And it's kind of janky and just like breaks the game a lot of the time.
Okay.
It's super easy though. Like it wasn't something where it was like, oh, I did the race 8 times and then I got screwed over enough to like put me in second place or something like that.
Yeah.
Which probably would have ended my journey in the game, honestly. But it was fairly easy. Most of the courses after like the first few just got really easy. SSX in particular, I think we've kind of moved on to course design at this point.
Yeah.
But SSX in particular, there was just so many like ways that you could break the game. You could just get it so busted. Like you could, like there was out of bounds like limitations and you'd get, warped back to the course.
Uh-huh.
But that was fairly like liberal with what they considered out of bounds. Like they let you get pretty far out of the way before they yoinked you back. There was a lot of like stupid tricks that you could pull off. I can't remember what course this was. I don't remember. But there's a course where there's a half pipe and you kind of have to like, it's kind of trying to make you go up each end of the half pipe like slowly to get through it. Mm-hmm. If you kind of get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But you could very easily just kind of ride the edge of the half pipe and not have to like wiggle your way through it like they wanted you to.
Oh,
And
so
it
you
was
could
like just a
cheese it?
major time saver.
Yeah.
Like if you were in last place, you'd just be in first place. Oh crap! How did we not bring this up? I hated the AI with a passion. I don't know if you ran into the same problem.
I mean, they
but-
pushed me down.
Yes, they kept jerking me around in the first game, especially.
Yes.
But they felt like a mob. Like they were always clumped up together.
Oh, yeah, I didn't like that.
I found that I was usually in first place or last place. Like I rarely ended up in between. Just because they were always so closely, like, they weren't spread out at all. Like it was kind of poor in that respect.
But yeah, no, I was just like frustrated. Well, because like, yeah, they were in a mob, so it would be frustrating if I was in first place and then I wiped out and then everybody just passed me all at once. It's like, oh, well, there goes like
Yes.
all my progress.
Or like if the mob caught up to me and I didn't have boost to get away, I'd be like,
Just
oh no,
pummel you.
they're
like,
coming. And then they just like start knocking me down and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
It was bad.
Yes.
And that was before I knew how to fight back. So yeah. Also like SSX, the first game, I noticed a couple more like glitches happening with the AI. So if they fell out of bounds, they would also get warped back, but sometimes they just like ended up in front of you. And this happened to me at like one of the races where they literally just warped in front of me and
Oh, so cheating.
beat me. Yeah, they cheated.
Oh, that's
I
disgusting.
was like, oh god, this sucks.
Yeah. I think one time one of them like crashed in front of me and then I like pinged off of them and then crashed and I was really annoyed about it.
Yeah. They were like even like with the Nemesis system thing in SSX Tricky, just bouncing off of them was almost as annoying as getting pushed down.
Yes. No, exactly. Yeah. That was an issue that I had.
I think in general I liked most of the courses starting with Tricky. So of the courses that were remade from SSX going into Tricky, a lot of them were like really overhauled as far as like alternate routes and just even the main route being changed up. So I don't think that there's any course from SSX that I would argue is better than the Tricky version of it. But if I had to say, if I was going to say like my favorite course from across the games, I really loved Mercury City Meltdown and Alola Ice Jam. Just aesthetically, I really like the idea of like snowboarding through like a city that just has like for some reason a crap ton of snow and stuff like that. Like that aspect of it was really fun.
Yeah.
Also like the alternate routes where you like ended up in like construction, like a concrete tube that was like dangling from a crane and stuff like that. It was really fun. Or like snowboarding on the rooftops. There's one point where you can like go through a window and you're in like an office building for a second and then you like pop out the other end.
Oh, that sounds
So
really
there's
cool.
a lot of fun stuff with that.
Yeah.
Alola Ice Jam too. Just Alola Ice Jam was like a little bit more like zany in the way that Tokyo Mega Complex is crazy and zany with like floating platforms and like crazy grind rails that make no sense. But I really like that one as well.
Yeah.
Did you have a favorite course?
No. I didn't get to see enough of them to have a favorite.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. What was I gonna say? Oh, I kept on the topic of alternate routes, I kept feeling like I was getting lost. Like there were parts of like the course where, you know, like they kind of like branch and then come back together. I would be like, you know, I'd take a branch and I'd be like, well, like when am I, you know, like I was just, I don't know, I was just having a hard time like navigating and understanding like where I was at.
I get you.
And where I was
especially
going.
in SSX. SSX like screwed me over a couple times where like I would end up in a slope, like I would fail a jump and I would end up in a slope and it just like I couldn't turn around and like I was getting all confused and stuff. So I get it.
Yeah. Or like I would get to a point, you know how there's like the guidelines on the ground?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'd get to a point where I don't know, there was like a weird section, I think in an early course in SSX where there weren't as many guidelines on the ground and I was like, what am I even supposed to be here?
Yeah. Sometimes you do just like there are a couple jumps where like I'm confused to their presence where it's like this jump just lands me kind of outside of the track. I don't know why it's here.
Yes.
Like-
yeah, that was the issue I was having. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, for the most part, the game kind of gravitates you towards where you need to go, or like just, gravity. It's like you're on a slope and it's going down. So for the most part, you're always kind of angled in the correct direction.
Right.
But when it gets all curvy and
Yeah.
weird, sometimes you just get, I don't know, like all messed up.
Right. Or like sometimes I would try to like skip the curves and just like brute force my way down to the bottom. And then sometimes I would, like I guess technically leave the course and then slow down. And yeah, I don't know. It was just interesting.
Okay, now let's get into the meat and potatoes.
Oh boy.
The characters. I have a kind of inexplicable love for the SSX characters in their various like forms they've taken throughout like the different iterations of the games. But I want to start with you. Did you have like any character that jumped out to you like across the course of the game?
There was a guy who looked completely unhinged in Tricky. Well, I mean, a lot of them look really unhinged. So you know how like in Tricky where you rotate through like the character selection screen like around that cylinder? There's a dude that's just standing way closer to the camera than everybody else. And he was my favorite.
You can't see him from the corner. Like you can't see him from the corner. So like as you're flipping through, it's just like, there he is.
Yes.
He's like right there.
Yeah. I forgot his name.
Simon.
Simon. Okay. Oh yeah, and it was spelled P-S-Y.
Yep.
Simon. Yes, that's why I liked him.
So this is perfect. So I'm going to show you what Simon looks like in SSX Tricky.
Okay.
I just sent you that image. And here is Simon in the reboot.
The jacket?
The military looking man?
What did they do to him?
This is like
they turned him into a survival dad.
Basically.
Ew. I hate that. No, give me crazy chain tattoo Simon back.
So I will say I agree. I prefer like the characters in general in Tricky versus like the reboot, which is what I'm showing Morgan. But I do just have like this thing where I love seeing like, here's a character. Now here's a character drawn in a different art style. It's like the same character, but re-envisioned in like a more realistic, gritty sort of art style. So I played as Mac for the most part. I played as Kaori in the first game, and then I played as Mac in Tricky. I'm going to show you Mac in SSX, and then I'm going to show you Mac in the reboot. So here's Mac in the original. Now, when they rebooted him, they made him all cool.
Okay.
And grown up. He's got like
they
this
took
blue
away
hoodie.
his whole face. Covered it up with some goggles.
In the reboot, they aged everyone up, I think, according to how long it had been.
Huh.
So Mac is like, I think 16 in these games, and then he's like 20-something.
Okay.
In the reboot. Okay, so there's 4 characters. I think I said this earlier, but I got it wrong. There's 4 characters that appear in all 6 of the main series games, and that's Zoe, Mac, Elise, and Kaori. So again, I don't know if this interests you as much as it does me, but I just love this. Where it's like, okay, here's Zoe in the reboot and like Zoe in the original. And it's like, they really like...
Zoe, what did they do to you? They like took away her
Zoe
crazy hair.
Like, Zoe felt so crazy in the original. But yeah, they just kind of made her all normal, I guess. Here's Elise in the new one, the character you played as.
Okay.
She's all normal looking.
They made her hot.
I think she was always hot.
Okay.
Frankly, I think that's what they were always going for.
Okay.
A little bit, but yeah, I played as Mac and Kaori, like playing through the game and stuff. And then I branched out to Zoe a little later, but like we said earlier, with like the characters kind of being geared towards a specific play style with like their stats and stuff, Mac and Kaori were more towards freestyle. And I think that Zoe was either BX or Alpine. So that could have been the reason that she felt a little bit more clunky to me whenever I tried her. But yeah.
It could be.
How do you feel about the characters?
I
like as a whole cast, holistically.
Liked them. I think that today's characters are afraid to be as committed to a wacky aesthetic as these guys are, you know? And I don't know, like, why that changed or, you know, what have you. Well, like, even, like, looking at, you know, what they did to them for the reboot, it's like you made them...
What they did to them.
Yeah. You took away all their personality.
Yeah, I definitely prefer, like, if I'm playing a game, I prefer it to have, like, you know, a fun amount of personality like this.
Well, especially when it's a racing game where it just kind of doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, having a crazy personality doesn't matter in a racing game because it's not like there's anything, like, weirdly, I don't know, high stakes you're going to do that's going to alienate you from the player. I don't know if that makes sense.
Real quick, because I'm looking up characters and just sending them to Morgan right now. There is this weird... Do you know... Okay, you know the show, the Cartoon Network show. This is going to sound like a weird tangent.
Okay.
But you know the Cartoon Network show Total Drama Island?
Yes.
There is some, I assume, extremely niche section of the internet that likes to mix and match up these two, like, franchises.
SSX and Total Drama Island?
Yeah. Look at the thing that I sent you.
What?
Yeah, so it's like there's
what?
like I don't understand it.
The guy in the bottom right looks like you.
No, he doesn't. I do not look like Cody from Total Drama Island. I'm not afraid to admit I was obsessed with that show whenever I was growing up.
I always thought it was, like, a little bit stupid because I was like, well, obviously because of, like, it's being produced, like, there's some, like, director that's making all the decisions, like, I don't know, you know what I mean?
I was a little dumb and didn't put that together.
But also, like, I do very much appreciate it for what it was, and I will admit I did watch it and enjoy it and think it was funny.
I don't know if it's one person making all this fan art of, like, mixing the characters together.
It's just like a DeviantArt account somewhere that's just like there's like, this is their hyperfixation.
I love them for it. Like,
yes.
Honestly, like,
yeah, same.
And I see it, like, looking at these characters and knowing or remembering them from, like, watching it as a kid. I'm like, you know what? It's dead on with all these, like, you know, Cody is Mac. And
they made Duncan Simon. I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, well, it's correct.
Yeah.
Like,
no, they did do a good job.
Gwen is Zoe. It's like, yes, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Justin is Brody, like the spiritual, like, surfer kind of snowboarder.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, they're accurate in their
that is
hyperfixation.
So funny.
I think that, like, it's a pretty well-rounded group of characters in SSX as far as, like, wacky personalities and stuff.
Right.
Like, we have Brody, who's, like, this spiritual surfer guy, like I mentioned. Kaori is kind of like this super kawaii Japanese girl, which is funny. And Mac is, like, a little, like, edgy teenager, basically. Who's, like, if you read his bio, I think he was, like, big into skateboarding and stuff like that. And I don't know. I love that characters, like, the characters have their own bio. I love how exaggerated their personalities are. It's good stuff.
Yes.
Anything else about the characters? I like the Uber tricks for the characters. Like, it's a fun way to, like, kind of play off of their personalities because they're all personalized to the characters.
Yeah, in the video I just watched, it was clear that they were each, like, each one of them relates to the character's personality in some way, which is cool.
I don't know how to find it, but, like, Luther has one where he's, like, it's like he's riding, like, a horse or something, and he's just, like, bucking around on it. And it's like, yeah, it's fitting.
Yeah.
Simon has one where he flips the board a bunch of times, like, rotating around his neck to be, like, all edgy, like, oh, he's cutting off his head. It's like, it's all very fitting.
Oh my gosh.
It's fun stuff.
Yeah, I was seeing the ones, the guy with the afro, I don't know his name, but it looked like he did, like, the worm on his board.
Yeah.
That was very good.
There was something funny that I thought whenever they were talking about the tricks for the characters, and they were talking about the Uber tricks, and they're like, yeah, nothing we showed in the game is technically impossible. And I'm like, all right. Yes, it is. Like, this is insanity. Like, they're
Right.
pushing off of their board like it has more weight than it does and
Yeah.
stuff. All right. I think that's all that I have for the characters.
Same.
It's fun to see them evolve throughout the other games as well, leading up to the reboot. Like, they introduce characters and remove some characters, but there's mainstays, and you get to see them, like, you know, slightly older,
Yeah.
a little different. It's like, it's fun to me. It's kind of like, I don't know, a little bit like seeing the new Overwatch characters, I guess.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah, that makes
they're
sense.
different and older, and time has passed.
Well, yeah,
Like-
it gives you the sense that they're alive because they change over time like people do, I
Yeah.
guess.
Like, you're so used to seeing them encapsulated in this one moment in time in Overwatch's case, or just like any game like this, where it's like, here's what they look like now. And it's like, oh my God, they changed. So
Yeah.
cool. All right, let's wrap this up. So, it doesn't look like you're able to play SSX or SSX Tricky pretty much anywhere other than the consoles that they were released for. I tried to look up if SSX Tricky was available on Xbox backwards compatibility. Unfortunately, it's not. It looks like SSX3 is. I assume that the reason for Tricky's omission is due to licensing for music. But yeah, so you can play Tricky on GameCube, PS2, obviously, and Xbox, and Game Boy Advance, if you're brave enough. And you can play SSX only on PS2. For that reason, it looks like physical copies of this game have, I don't know, they're pretty high, at least what I was looking at. They were like cracking the $100 mark. So,
Ooh.
yeah, it's a little bit inaccessible.
Or you could do what I did.
I'm not going to say that.
Yeah.
You're pretty limited on where you can play SSX and Tricky. Basically just original platforms. And maybe something else. I don't know. I don't know about that other option, though. And I'm not going to advise it. But do we recommend any of these games? Morgan, I'm interested to hear your take.
So, I think my take is similar to something you said, like, earlier on, which is basically this game is probably not the most accessible thing to people with like minimal experience with this like genre or with racing games in general. So like it's not like Mario Kart, you know, where like basically anybody can pick it up and more or less play semi-efficiently.
Yeah.
But if you are a fan of the genre, this is definitely a good game for you. Even though I didn't get as much enjoyment out of it as probably as Clayton did, I still have like a lot of respect for the game itself, and like it was clear that they knew what they were doing when they made it.
I really enjoyed going back to Tricky, and like it's a game that gets more enjoyable like the more time you put into it. I feel like actually kind of focusing on the trick book and like learning the tricks of each character was really rewarding. So if you're interested in obviously other SSX games, if you played the reboot like me and enjoyed that, or like Tony Hawk games, I feel like this is probably a good thing to recommend to people who are fans of that series specifically, because that I think casts a wider net with like people who have played it. So if you had just played Tony Hawk and liked it, I think that this is a very like similar kind of game. So definitely worth checking out.
A point that I was going to make that I totally like forgot about until just now, until you just said that, was it's sort of like this game is one of those things that definitely gets more enjoyable the more time you put into it, or the more times you play it, in which I think is like interestingly in opposition to like I don't know, like Skyrim, for example. Like the first time you play Skyrim is probably going to be your best experience because everything is so like new to you. And
Yeah.
I get that that's just because it's like an RPG and like, you know, you get familiar with the map and then you're not as surprised by things anymore, and then it sort of like loses its charm. I think this gets more charming the more time you put into it and the more experience you get.
The more you like explore the different routes and like
Exactly.
the different like characters and their like special tricks and stuff, it's very fun.
Right.
All right. So Morgan, I mean, we talked about this a lot. like some of the problems we had with the game that we wish
Yeah.
were handled better. But if there were to be another reboot of SSX, because this is a dead franchise at this point,
Yeah.
unfortunately, I don't know. I with Tony Hawk's revival, or not revival necessarily, but they re-released the first 2 games in like a package and like kind of remade them, brought them up to like modern graphics and stuff.
Right.
I don't want to get my hopes up, but I could see a remake of SSX Tricky. If there was going to be a remake of any game from the series in particular,
Yeah.
it would definitely be Tricky. And maybe that would be like kind of getting the feelers out for a new game. But if you could provide some input on what you would like to see in like a new entry in this series, what would you like to see done differently or better or whatever?
So I don't want to say that they need to like dumb down the mechanics or anything like that necessarily, but I wish that the tutorials were I wish I was just baby just a little bit more right out the gate. So like if there was, you know, like a training slope that showed you how to do tricks, but there was also like a training slope that was almost more like a racetrack, and it had like button prompts that appeared on screen to tell you how to do certain things so that it was easier to apply when you're actually out there in a real race. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I get you. Yeah.
And also probably some adjustments to, because like we talked about that difficulty difficulty curve earlier.
It's very short. Yeah.
Yeah. If they could just, I don't know, fix it.
I agree. I think that a system where maybe, let's say you're trying to pull off like a simple trick, like you're doing a grab and a tweak or something like that, like a really simple button combo. Maybe if it was harder to crash doing something like that, which it kind of already is, and the game does this already with like the Uber tricks taking so long to like complete. But a risk reward thing kind of like that, where the more complicated the tricks get, the easier it's going to be to like wipe out.
Yeah.
Essentially. So you could kind of try to make the game feel more catered to new players and stuff while still like having it be challenging and rewarding to get good at for people who like want that. So
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, that's kind of what the game already does, but I think the real problem with this is that it's kind of just clunky. Like it's just got a little bit of clunk to it,
right.
Especially SSX.
Yes, definitely.
Going to the reboot, it's like so much more light, I guess. Like your character just feels like paper and you're just like manipulating them like crazy. Like from just like a neutral position, not going off a jump or anything, you can do a jump and then do like a triple front flip and it's like nothing. Like
oh
it
my
doesn't.
Goodness.
And I don't love that. Like that game, if you're just button mashing, you probably feel like you're awesome, I assume, because you're just like, oh man, I'm doing a bunch of crazy stuff. And as long as you just like land, you know, with your feet on the ground,
right.
then it's like, yeah, you did great.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like that this game is more deliberate. Like you have to kind of know what tricks you're doing, and like even with like the flips and stuff, like you have to plan your flip before you jump if you really want to get the most out of the flip or the spin.
Right.
And I like that. I could go either way a little bit. I like how insane the reboot is, but I felt like it wasn't as rewarding to get good at. I don't know. Because, like, if you look at someone who's bad at SSX Tricky versus someone who's good, you're like, I see the difference.
Right.
But if you look at someone who's bad at the reboot versus someone who's good at it, I assume it would look more similar, honestly.
That makes sense.
All right. So that covers SSX. And Tricky.
And Tricky.
We did it.
2 and 1. 2 for 1.
2 for 1. All right. So this next game is all Morgan.
Yeah, so next time, we're going to be covering a little game called Scalar. Well, I say it's little. I did some preliminary playing of it, and it's a lot longer than I remember, so...
Oh, it is?
I think,
Okay.
yeah. But yeah, it's like a third-person platformer. Little Blue Lizard Man. So we will be talking about that next month.
I'm going in absolutely blind. I don't know anything about it yet.
I'm going in semi-blind. I played the first, I don't know, probably half of it as a kid and then didn't get any farther. But this time, I'll try to.
I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to play a platformer again.
Yeah, I think, I hope you'll enjoy it.
I think that's all for this episode. You can find me on my YouTube channel, Pixel Wave. And you can find Morgan queued up for DPS and Overwatch. I'm glad I wrote that. I must have wrote that when we were playing Overwatch.
Probably.
Briefly.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all I got.
All right.
How do we end these episodes? I don't actually know. I think last time we just like reiterated, hey, you can find us on platforms.
Well, yeah, because you were like,
said.
you can find Morgan on Bleep, because I was like, no.
Oh, yeah.
Don't. Leave me be. I'm lurking.
But I think the outro that we should stick with is I don't know. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Which I think is what we said in the first episode.
Oh, okay.
So, I don't know. Goodbye.
Goodbye. I hated that.
Do it again.
Goodbye. No. Goodbye. No. I can't. Now I'm overthinking it. I can't say it like a normal person. Can you say goodbye?
Goodbye.
Goodbye.